8 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. And we got so much to talk about this week because we got a double header of shows this weekend between King and Queen of the Ring, AEW Double or Nothing in Vegas going down. Lots of wrestling happening this weekend. We're going to take a look at that and see what's standing out. We got other stuff going on too because it's also a bit of a birthday weekend because AEW turns 5. Who'd have thought? 5 years of AEW as of this weekend. So we're going to take a look back at that. And SummerSlam is getting bigger with 2 nights in 2025. All that and more. Buckle in, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really need that Big Gold Belt.
Hello, everybody. Glad you're here with us on a Thursday night. As always, here at Big Gold Belt, it's your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, breaking down the week in wrestling. I got 2 James to my left on the screen and the Giant Crab Jamal to my right. Gentlemen, how are you doing this week?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
happy to be here.
I'm glad to be here too, since I wasn't here last week. So it's good to be back because we kind of got a lot going on all of a sudden this week. It feels like today there was not necessarily big news happening today, but notable news that we'll be sprinkling in throughout the show because suddenly there's a bit more weight to some things that we've been talking about. But I figure the best place to start is this weekend, because we have a double header of major shows happening this weekend. First up on Saturday, King and Queen of the Ring from Saudi Arabia, from the World Wrestling Entertainment. That's going down on Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern. We love those afternoon shows, so that's always a good time. And then, of course, the following day, Sunday night, will be AEW Double or Nothing, emanating from Las Vegas. So 2 pretty major darn shows happening. So I guess let's start with Saturday and we can kind of work our way through the weekend. We got King and Queen of the Ring happening on Saturday, which I know we've talked about in recent weeks. And from the beginning, we were kind of like, it seems like they're putting a bit more effort into these tournaments and making it a bit more notable and newsworthy. And then lo and behold, today at the last minute, with everyone arriving in Saudi Arabia, Triple H, Hunter, we should just call him now, John Paul, hops off the plane and announces that he's raising the stakes. So there is indeed going to be more weight to the King and Queen of the Ring tournament, as now the winners of the King and Queen of the Ring will get to challenge for their respective brands championships at SummerSlam in August. So there is not just crowns on the line, there are title shots on the line now. So I guess first impressions on that, since this is just out of nowhere, this happened this afternoon. So I'll go to you first too, James. What thoughts on this?
I think it's just another effect of the Triple H era. It's exciting news because beyond the decor you get for winning, which the crown looks pretty cool, and I think where you are being crowned at is probably a cool little extra additive to it. But yeah, now that it actually have implications into the canon universe of WWE, I think it's a good look. You know, no matter however you want to look at it, folks have to remember that these Saudi shows, under the 10-year contract, 2 years, 2 shows a year, are glorified house shows. And the reason why they're glorified house shows is because they do have major production. The set design and everything is probably one of the best, but it is to appease the Saudi family, the royalty family, which is why you see dream matches that you didn't think you would see, people coming out of retirement working matches that you didn't think you was going to see. And I actually think that when it comes down to these shows, they kind of look through the Rolodex and say, well, who's available? Who can get in the ring? Who can we wipe the dust off of? Traditionally in the Vince era. But now, since that Triple H is not only running the new shop, but I also think there's also measure of consideration under the TKO banner, because this may be the last time we see one of these shows be just a WWE weekend, considering that now combat sports in general is going to Saudi Arabia and running major events and major weekends. So to me, I think to kind of wipe off the stink, if you may have it, of it just being a glorified show to it being a legitimate PLE, I think this was a good first step. It legitimizes the need to watch it. It legitimizes the stakes of winning, and then I also think it gives the audience knowing that now there is reason to watch these shows, and I think it's all a win. So yeah, I'm happy about the news that and how it came out and so on, and this gives an extra reason to want to watch.
I'm going to go out on a limb. Bold prediction time.
Uh-oh.
If this goes well, it could replace Money in the Bank as the 5th of the Big 5 pay-per-views. And the reason why I say that is because we are now on the road to SummerSlam.
Yeah.
We had WrestleMania season starting off with the Royal Rumble and everything that's built towards that. And now we have, King of the Ring leading into SummerSlam. So it's not that it's going to replace, anything else, but we know what the Royal Rumble does. We know that it leads to WrestleMania. We know the Survivor Series is a thing, and that's arguably the weakest link. And then, of course, Money in the Bank has definitely stepped up recently. But with this whole season, because we have the tournament, that preceded this, and the finals will be on the pay-per-view, and then they're going to ride that wave through the summer with whatever comes after this until August. So I guess we got like 2 months, to deal with that. I think that it kind of gives people like a second, refresh throughout the summer, and builds the anticipation for SummerSlam in a way that really hasn't been done in quite some time. So, and then that comes on the back of SummerSlam being 2 nights in 2026. So I definitely think whether or not the King of the Ring thing remains in Saudi Arabia, which, is a thing in and of itself, it is an interesting, concept that, and again, product of the Triple H era, sure, that I think could definitely hold some weight as it needs to. And this is what we said last week. The Saudi shows need a little bit of more oomph to give it a little bit more gravitas that makes it more than just a glorified house show. But this is that thing. Now, as far as the spectacle of an event, then maybe Survivor Series because of Survivor Series. Maybe Money in the Bank because of Money in the Bank would be a bigger spectacle than just the two tournament final matches. But I do believe, though, that given the nature of the tournament and, WWE, our masters at a highlight package, this is a really good look overall. But I think as far as the importance of it, they're on their way to building something that could be part of the ecosystem for years to come. And I like it. I like the and honestly, it's such a simple thing. You kind of wonder why we haven't had this before, where they haven't done a King of the Ring in 10 years, and it really wasn't anything other than a gimmick change for a while. But now that it actually kind of means something, quote unquote, it's kind of like, hey, all right, I like where we're going. I like where we're setting it up. I like that there is something to watch on Saturday, other than just, if you didn't watch it, you didn't miss anything. As good as Backlash was, people are talking about it for other things than the show. People are talking about the crowd. People are talking about the fact that the show was pretty well produced. I didn't hear anybody saying a damn thing about a match. The
matches were all solid on it. Was a solid.
I mean, they were fine, but of the things that stood out, I'm not hearing anything about matches.
Let me jump in there real quick to that, because I think I said this and I felt like you agreed that like the match card for that pay-per-view was takeover-ish, where you knew it was going to be a solid card. Sure, there could have been a match that was going to really stand out amongst the others, but this was just that. They all were just very solid matches. So to be expected, at least from my view, that they were all going to be good. It was like, what was going to be the standout? Which match would it have been? And it happened to be the 12th man, which was the crowd that came up and showed out in a way we wasn't expecting. That's why I don't think you heard too much about it.
No, I can agree with that. But that's also, kind of the thing. I'm not hearing the things about the matches themselves. And even though, and again, that's more to the point of Backlash being a B pay-per-view, doing its thing, and then of course over exceeding its expectations as a B pay-per-view. Now that King of the Ring has that weight that it was so sorely needed for these Saudi shows, it definitely elevates the concept. So I like it. Interesting show to see. Memorial Day weekend, and then of course it is Memorial Day weekend. AEW's run Double or Nothing for the past 5 years, and now this is another thing to just take a wind out of their sails. I mean, it's all chess, it's all gamesmanship, and Triple H knows what he's doing. So
yeah, well, I think the other thing that makes this interesting now is it throws into question the results of these tournaments now, because now it's not just about a crown, it's about, oh, these are going to be big time SummerSlam matches now, whoever wins these things. So like looking at these two brackets, it's like, okay, Gunther's going to take on either Randy Orton or Tama Tonga on the men's side in the final. And then on the women's side, Lyra Valkyria is either going to take on Nia Jax or Bianca Belair. So the matches now are a lot more interesting because it's like, okay, now it's about who's going to be in August getting these title shots.
Well, let me ask you this. How is that any different than going through December and early January wondering who number 30 is going to be in the Royal Rumble? And then that's kind of my...
It's not like number 30 is going to win it. And it's not like number 30's got a ticket to WrestleMania for being number 30. So this is a bit different where it's like, and I think it's also interesting that they're waiting to SummerSlam for the title shot. They're not saying the title shot at Money in the Bank, that they're waiting 2 whole more pay-per-views before we'll get to SummerSlam. It's like, this is really setting up like a long-term...
It's SummerSlam season, man. This is where it starts.
It's an interesting twist that they didn't tie it into Money in the Bank. That they're like, no, it's going to be the SummerSlam title matches. So I don't know. I'm really curious now, because now it's not just about this darn crown; it's about the booking for the whole summer. So it adds a lot more to it. So I'm excited about it. We only got 5 matches on the show, so the only other stuff on there other than those are the women's title match. We have Becky and Liv Morgan. We got here in our comments, old Toxic Key here saying she's scared that Liv is going to lose. I don't know. That's a tough one, because Becky got that title match, got the title under odd circumstances with everything that happened with Rhea. So I'd say it's a bit of a toss-up what's going to happen there with Becky and Liv in that one. But other than that, it's just we have that. We have the 2 tournament finals I mentioned. Intercontinental title, Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and Bronson Reed for the Intercontinental title. And Cody Rhodes defending against Logan Paul in a total, that is a Saudi Prince special match there. For getting celebrity star power on the show. I mean, I'm looking at those 5 matches and I'm like, run it like Backlash. You have that show done in 2 hours and 50 minutes and I'm going to be golden. So let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it kind of just speaks as the whole of the show. It's very different. It's a different feeling show than what they've done in the past, because what they've done in the past was all of these, gimmick, spots, whether it's the Undertaker coming back or whatever the case may be. Now this is like, this fits well within the ecosystem, and they're actually starting a new thing for a SummerSlam. So, I like the way it fits. The show actually fits, instead of just, oh, it's on at 1 in the afternoon on a Saturday randomly.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else, Harvard? Should we switch gears to Double or Nothing?
Well, let's go to Double or Nothing.
Let's go to Double or Nothing then. So, of course, Double or Nothing is definitely going to have a bit more than 5 matches on it. That is going to be a much more...
I think Double or Nothing started like half an hour ago.
Yeah. Probably. No, knowing the way AEW does these shows. But yes, Double or Nothing. I guess on top we got Swerve and Christian Cage as the big world title match. How are we feeling about that as Swerve's first big title defense? Because I don't know, to me it's kind of...
It's not
what I would be expecting for one of their pay-per-views.
I don't think... I mean, do we consider his first big one? He had one the night after, and that's definitely his first. And depending on how you look at wrestlers, it could be first, it could be as big or not. I don't know. The way I look at it is that this pay-per-view, which was a destination pay-per-view, feels a little overshadowed because of Destiny, which felt like just a week ago. So for me, I feel like the momentum going into this pay-per-view in general seems a little Dynasty. Yeah, that's a Destiny Dynasty.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Who is Destiny?
St. Louis. this pay-per-view feels a little overshadowed to me, and that's why, like, when you said it was this week, I was like, wait, really? But for him and for this match, I mean, I guess. I guess. I don't know.
To me, it feels like a Dynamite main event is what it feels like. It don't feel like a pay-per-view main event. There's just something missing from it for me.
I think that's like, I think the whole card is like that it feels like a commercial-free Dynamite, because I think because we've seen so many of these stories over the past 2 or 3 months brewing, and then of course through Dynasty and since Revolution, it's kind of like, well, I want to see something else. These aren't the matchups that I'm interested in. This is kind of what I want to see, and yeah, just the build kind of is like, okay. The only match that I'm really looking forward to, as far as the Double or Nothing goes, is Willow versus Mercedes. Not because it's Mercedes' first match. It's because I would like Willow to retain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
You're not alone in that.
That's much more interesting to me than Mercedes coming in and winning and then pretending to be a face again, or a CEO, or whatever she does. I think her starting from the bottom, the actual bottom, would be a thing. I don't need Mercedes to be Becky Lynch after her comeback. They just give her the belt because people know her. No, build stars, and that's kind of been the thing that AEW hasn't really. That I feel that they haven't really done enough is actually like build stars. I don't care if we knew you before. Let me reintroduce you and repackage you as who you are now. So where's the build? So I think this would be a huge deal for Willow and her career if she were to take this thing down, and Mercedes maybe needs to start over. And obviously, this is, how does she look is going to be the biggest question for Mercedes. How does the package all come together? Does it come together? If she wins if she wins poorly, then what do you do?
Okay, and if she doesn't win,
then she goes to the back of the line where she belongs.
So what does that do for her career?
Absolutely nothing.
If she loses? No. I'm sorry. I'm talking about Willow.
Oh, well, I mean, if Willow wins, then it's arguably the biggest match she's had in AEW. If she loses, then she just, goes to the back of the line. I mean, there's a number of women in AEW that are, and granted, this is only the TBS title. I think that Willow should be in the women's title picture. So I don't have a problem with her losing and then moving on to the bigger picture.
You can make that same argument about Mercedes too. Because
Mercedes challenged for the TBS title.
I know, but you also, I know. Stop.
I'm just saying, why would she do that?
You can argue that she's the biggest star that they have on the roster, and her not going after the AEW's Women's Championship is a little beneath her. So my point is, I think it's a big deal for Willow. She wins, huge deal. She should win.
Biggest win of her career.
She loses, I think it's a huge deal too, because after all the momentum that she built, and I think everything about Willow is organic, all day, every day. I don't think there's ever a sense of like we have to push her or she's the next one up. I just think that she genuinely is a person up and down the board, that everything that she receives, every bit of victory, whatever, the right place at the right time, however you want to look at it, it's truly all organic. You don't get her as a person that's campaigning in the locker room why she deserves something or this and that. So I don't know, man. I think when you have something organic and you run into a new shiny toy, which has been addition at AEW, they not only go to the back of the line, they go into purgatory. And that, I think, is, I don't know. I don't know if I can sit with that as a fan. And if it's even a biased statement or not, I just don't know if I can sit with her losing. And then it's like, all right, well, now it's the Mercedes era. Who's her first challenger? It's like, are we just going to forget everything that Billow just built and true like fandom around her? I don't know. It just seems like that is.
I think it depends on how she wins, though. Because if Mercedes has a heel win, then obviously it's not a complete and total, disaster for Willow. If Mercedes beats her clean, and looks poor doing it because, of course, we're banking on the ring rust here and all of that. But if Mercedes wins poorly, that speaks. That's more of a detriment to Willow.
That's not going to go.
That's not going to go well because if she botches her finisher like she did in Japan and wins, it's going to be hell to pay. But if but that's also what AEW has a problem with too, not really reading the room and understanding that the plans can change mid-plan. And I think that the plan is obviously for Mercedes to take the belt, and Willow's been a transition champion, and we kind of knew that. They were just waiting for the pay-per-view. That may be the plan. I strongly believe the plan should be changed.
Yeah, no doubt when Mercedes showed up back in March, that was the plan. Okay, we're going to build these 2 months. You'll get your title win in Vegas in your debut. But the way these last 2 months have gone, that momentum ain't there. If they're gonna give her the belt in the first win, they got to get creative here and come up with some kind of way of doing it that's gonna spice her up, give her something, and she's got to look good doing it too. That's the other.
Unfortunately, Mercedes is a CEO, so now she needs minions, and that's going to be when Chris Statlander turns on Willow, and her and Stokely and Mercedes go off and form the corporation or the LLC or whatever goofy corporate name stable that you want to have. But
I could see it.
And basically, they're just going to be like copyright lawyer gimmick, and somebody calls Stevie Richards, but it's going to be that thing, and that's a very AEW move for them to do that if that were to be the case, because Willow doesn't lose poorly, but then Mercedes obviously gets her win, and that ain't it.
So let me just be frank. I really don't care about that match because I just can see it to be very detrimental to Willow. And if she wins, then I'll be glad to revisit it after the fact and talk about it then. But first of all, just looking at the card fully, the Swerve and Christian Cage match, I just don't care about that match. I am interested in the Anarchy in the Arena. Those are always fun. I think Trent Beretta and Orange Cassidy, because Orange Cassidy has just been a clinic for wrestling for the last.
That could be the
forever.
Sleeper match of the show easily.
1,000%. The Moxley and Takeshita, I don't know. Is it me or is it that Takeshita? Does he seem? I've seen some comments from him, and
yeah, but he said that that was taken out of context. He totally loves America and AEW, and anybody that thinks so is foolish.
I don't know, man. This match seems very forced, and the fact that it's for the IWGP seems very.
It feels like it's on there to be a match on the show, as opposed to there being anything really behind it.
If anything, the belt itself feels more like a prop here. I think the Copeland Malachi match, especially considering the build and everything they've been doing, could be fun. Serena Deeb, I still think is one of the best pro wrestlers in the world, so I look forward to that actually. And then Will Ospreay and Roger Strong. I mean, I don't know. I guess it could go back to the old ROH days, and I know Roderick has a lot left in the tank. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world too. And I think with everything that Ospreay is doing, the attention that he's bringing, just because of his style and because he's a new signee, and he's definitely been very utilized since he's been there. That should be a fun match. So there's some matches on here for sure. There's definitely some matches.
Okay, now, let's say if it was pay what you can, how much do you put in the pot for this pay-per-view?
25.
Okay. Oh, damn! All right, big money.
UK pricing. There you go.
I mean, because what they're $50, right, or $60?
I think they're 50.
They're 50 in the US. 50 in the US. Now we mentioned it before we went on the air. Let's at the beginning of the show, right quick. There are more options now to buy, so you're no longer forced to have to deal with Bleacher Report and they're crashing.
Thank God.
Triller TV has it, but they also today announced that they made a deal with is it DAZN or DAZN?
Yeah.
I'm always thrown off on how they pronounce it, but they are also going to be covered.
Can we take a detour here in topics and talk about what's the most important news of today that has something to do with wrestling, but
Ric Flair wants to die in the ring.
Maybe what a lot of people aren't talking about.
What?
Ticketmaster and Live Nation is under fire by the federal government. Something I've been bitching about for years of the scam artists that they are. And now the government has stepped in because they know damn well the monopoly that they've been running. And it's so weird to me because Ticketmaster got sued. I don't know, what has it been, like 5 or 6 years ago for wrongdoing?
It's happened before, for them being monopolistic and all these service fees and
and they right back at it. And what's interesting is because it does make, even as press, which is honestly the most beautiful thing about the press thing is I would love to be, I would have no problem being press and paying for tickets if I did not have to go through the Ticketmaster shenanigans. But I just had to just make sure it's thrown out there that, like, I hope they get that together because the fan experience and trying to get tickets is a nightmare no matter what you're trying to go see. And the government seems like they're about to step in to make good with that. Just had to throw that out there. But the Zone, though, the Zone stepping in. The Zone has once again reemerged as a destination for combat sports.
Yes.
After they gave Canelo all the money in the entire world, and then there was rumors that they might have been bankrupt because they gave Canelo all the money in the world. I think AEW The Zone is a good look. There's good synergy there. This is a more sustainable platform for streaming combat sports. So
I'm sure it will work better than old Bleacher Report does. Now there is a catch for this that folks got to know is probably how they're trying to make up some of their money. This is similar to the ESPN UFC model, where it's a subscription service you gotta subscribe to, but then the event itself is another fee. This is not a one fee and you're in like Peacock and WWE Network type deal. It's not like that. So the way this works, if you get the show through DAZN, you buy the show and they're going to give you the first month of DAZN for free. But they are going to have your card on the hook that at the end of the month, there will then be a $29.99 charge automatically hit if you do not cancel. So make sure you cancel your shit afterwards. Otherwise, they're going to get you for a monthly DAZN fee that you signed up for when you bought the pay-per-view.
Let me just say, as a person who does subscribe to things, which Jamal doesn't, I can say that this is a very standard practice.
Absolutely. They're banking on you not realizing it, and they can keep charging that card. It's very typical of these days. So just it's the fine print of the deal.
And honestly, fine print or not, it's very standard. In anything, it could even be Sirius SM Radio. They'll give you 3 months for free. Yeah, but that 4th month.
Exactly. We need your card info to activate, and we're going to make sure that month 4 we are hitting that card up immediately. So it's not uncommon, but just letting folks know. I made sure I clicked through on the news and it was like, how are they doing this? And sure enough, that's how they're doing.
Well, let's also put it out there that this AEW and DAZN deal is for Eastern Europe and not for the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So,
really? It's not for U.S.?
No.
Really?
So if you are in Eastern Europe, most the part of Europe that nobody talks about anymore, then Poland, Portugal, Norway, North Macedonia, Malta, the Jan
Mayen U.S. Islands. I'm looking at the press release. It says U.S.
Right. No, it says it's only available in the following countries.
There's a part of the bomb that just says territories excluded, and it's like Australia, Afghanistan, India, Japan, but not Europe, not the U.S.
Yeah. So when I right. So can I watch AEW on DAZN in my country? AEW will be available on DAZN in the following countries, and it names a bunch of countries in Europe: Turkey, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and mostly Eastern Europe and Portugal. So I'm not seeing North America there, which makes sense if they still have the TNT deal. Why would they air it on DAZN? Now, it's also not just Dynamite. Not just pay-per-views. They're going to have Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. They're going to have Battle of the Belt when that airs, and then they're going to have the pay-per-views. And apparently they're going to air reruns of Dark on Monday and Tuesday. So they're going to broadcast the full suite of AEW. And obviously, for territorial reasons, they can't air those things.
Yeah, that part won't
and
be in the
TNT.
U.S.
Right.
Sure.
So if you are in, the countries in Europe that you need a passport to go to, out of the Schengen zone, except Malta and Latvia and Lithuania and Portugal, then yeah, good on you for AEW, this entire suite of AEW on DAZN. But yeah, it's on their website. There's a whole press release for it. It's a whole thing. Now, I don't mind it being everywhere that it needs to be, because of the fact that AEW and Bleacher Report has been a match made in hell. It's no excuse for how bad Bleacher Report has been, and finally getting on YouTube was a good look, and finally being on other platforms was a good look as well. So, good on them.
Awesome.
More options are better. Matter of fact,
absolutely.
Matter of fact, the fact that everything has more options, why shouldn't pay-per-views? It should almost be a very norm to have the diversity in terms of where you can watch a show. But if not, holla at Will, get that VPN. We need a VPN code or something.
Yeah,
you cannot beat those UK prices.
NordVPN, let us talk to us.
Will ain't sweat a bullet when he heard it ain't in America. It's like, okay.
Use the technology, folks. Use the technology. All right. Let's go to halftime. And when we come back, let's talk about AEW Turning 5. And then we got to talk about SummerSlam next year, because SummerSlam is getting bigger. And maybe that might be the start of things to come. So stay with us, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast will be back right after this.
A little birdie told me, everybody, that you may be interested in doing some sponsorship and advertising opportunities with us here at Big Gold Belt Media. You know what? You might as well, because we are the golden standard for all of your media needs. Why would you want to go anywhere else? Besides, all of your pre-roll ads, your mid-roll ads, as well as your on-air reads are going to be done by me, Damian G. Yeah, professional broadcaster, Damian G. We do all types of social media promotions. That means your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your business website all get shouted out on our network here at Big Gold Belt Media, where we cover wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And you can find out more information and make those inquiries, kids, because, limited time offer here at Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com. Again, that is Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com. Why would you want to go anywhere else? I wouldn't. Well, I work here, but I still wouldn't even if I didn't. So again, Big Gold Belt Media for all your sponsorship and advertising opportunities, your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, all of your social media platforms, as well as any business website you want us to promote on our show. Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com, and let them know Damian G sent you.
Yes, indeed. Damian G hopefully will be back next week, checking in with us here at Big Gold Belt Group every Thursday night, 8 p.m., folks. Thanks for being here with us tonight. And I'm thinking back right now, 5 years ago, we must have been sitting here on a Thursday night talking about the first Double or Nothing coming up, what it was going to be, what, was going to be happening here with AEW's first big show. So first question right out of the gate, I'm thinking back 5 years ago, did you think we'd be here 5 years later with this thing still trucking at this point? What do you think, James?
I think with the pandemic, it was a little dicey on what was going to still be around, to be honest.
5 years ago, there was no pandemic yet. So it's
Shout out to Red Lobster, because Red Lobster out here giving the scripts. Red Lobster said, yeah, we found bankruptcy, but we ain't done. We'll be back, just so you know, because, that's typically an indication that that's the end of something. So I think, to kind of take a look across the board in terms of businesses, companies, promotions, resilience is a very powerful tool to have in your corner. And I think that any company that was able to stand alongside the WWE, especially during a pandemic, to survive the pandemic in its own, I think there was a good level of confidence that AEW was going to be around. So congratulations to them for 5 years. I can't wait to really reflect back for 10 years. I think 10 years is really going to have a very nice, a very nice a bit of data for us to kind of analyze and look back and say, how did they perform being a new company in these times? And for 5 years, I mean, they're doing shows, they're going around the world, they're bringing together talent from around the world. They're doing the thing, so good for them.
All right, so you think they're going to double it and make it an even 10? That we'll be talking 5 years from now that they'll still be around.
I say the only thing that puts them in jeopardy, AEW will be around, but we live in the world of cancel culture, and cancel culture typically can be detrimental to brands, owners, and so on. And I think the times where we start to see Tony Khan going off the rails, I swear for me, it just feels like it's only a matter of time before he slip up and say or do something inappropriate. And could he be his own worst enemy in this? You know, I think that interview during the NFL draft weekend and that comment he made about WWE, that was a little. First of all, that's ill-advised. No PR person would have told him to go say that, and that's damn near on thin ice in terms of things you say. And if you were very much willing to say something like that as a joke, it just makes me feel it's only a matter of time before he ends up saying or doing something that could be inappropriate. Of course, I don't wish for nobody's downfall, but we see his little sporadic moments, whether it's on social media or on television. So, and could that be detrimental to AEW? Maybe. I don't think there's ever going to be a financial issue involved in any of this. Which to me thinks that without a doubt they'll be here for double the time, but it's going to be interesting next few 5 years. It definitely will.
So I'm not surprised that they're still here after 5 years, and a lot of the reason why is because of during COVID. Well, actually, even after COVID, they spent the better portion of their career, of their existence, rather, the first maybe 3 years, as being a hardline alternative to WWE. Okay. And once they did that, once they established themselves as the wrestling first super indie with a TV deal or whatever you want to call it, those 3 years kind of went by pretty quickly, especially during COVID. And then a couple years later, after that, they have actually not grown in the way that the diehard fans would want them to, because of course the diehard fans want them to be bigger than WWE, selling out 20,000 seat arenas every single night, every show, every time. But realistically, for a number of reasons, some of they're in control and some of they're not in control, it is to the point that AEW has had measured growth, and then of course some unforced errors that have tripped them up or set them back. Not every signing that they've had that was good on paper has panned out. Not every idea that they've had that was good on paper worked. Some things did work. Some things don't. People get injured. People don't. I mean, it's unfortunate that guys that are really just like good, hard, talent, Ethan Page, he fell into the shadow realm. Matt Hardy, he's in the land of wind and ghost. These things. There's more, and of course, Dark. I truly believe that Dark is the best product that AEW's ever produced because of the impact that it had on the wrestling community as a whole, especially during COVID. The indies weren't running. It was Jacksonville or bust. And that was a real thing. So good on them for that. And I think the biggest frustration with AEW is the fact that they haven't grown as much as they should. They should be arguably as fast as they started ahead of where they are now. And where they are now is seeing some strategic moves in the arenas that they book. No, they're not stepping up to the arenas, the basketball arenas anymore. They're still running colleges. They're going to have the esports arena, which is only 2,500 people. So, it's interesting to see what their business model is, and it kind of shows in that regard that they're definitely playing it smart and playing it cautious, and I'm not mad at that. So I would rather them work smart and slow than go out like WCW did or ECW did, and consider all the stuff they've done. The Wembley show was a big deal. They're doing it again. The video game was a great first step, not obviously what we wanted, but for the first alternative to 2K in 10 years, it was a good first step. Now, when they do it again, do it better, or it's going to sit back on the shelf. So they have a long way to go, and there's much to improve. But good on them.
It's not a bad first 5 years because they catered to the fans. Tony Khan obviously catered to himself too. But they checked all the boxes. They ran pay-per-views, they did stadiums, they did arenas, they did small ones, they did big ones. They had a video game, they grew social media.
A major TV show.
Yeah, they multiple TV shows. So, in the sense of I want to be a wrestling promoter. Well, they did all the things here, including signing big names and whatnot. But the thing that we realize about brands is it ain't always just about what happens in the square circle, your octagon, your ring. It is really about the influence that your company has in society or pop culture, because the growth is really limited to the niche audience. But to tap into some of these other ones, yeah, that's it. And they have trickled in that with, toys and whatnot. They did some collaborations with Street Fighter. They've done things. They've definitely done significant things. And I think if they stay out of their own way, the next 5 years should be very interesting now, because I think we're out of the testing period. I think they've been out of the testing period for about 2 years. I think they absolutely figured out their identity. But now I think it is truly about growth. And when I say growth, it's not so much about the bigger TV deal or whatnot, or streaming service, whatnot. Those things definitely help. But I think it definitely is about the influence outside of the wrestling world. How do you tap into some of these other markets, and what does that look like? Hell, let's see more of a collaboration effort between the NFL and AEW. You introduced them on the draft. You introduce your brand. I mean, you tried.
But the guy who runs the place is literally an owner. So there should be inroads that can be made there.
Yeah.
A lot easier than it would be for a lot of other places.
I think the biggest thing that we talk about, and we always talk about that, is the corporate synergy between Warner Brothers and AEW.
Yeah.
And how
the lack of,
and how we need them to step that up, in whatever way it looks. So it's not just putting Shark Week on the ring apron. It is, getting, Moxley into a Mortal Kombat game or whatever. I need Swerve in Injustice. If they bring that back, I need, all of these different things. We talked about this last year when Barbie came out. That was a Warner Brothers movie. Where was this on AEW? Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, but I believe at CinemaCon they said that Warner Brothers grossed the most of any studio company in the entire world, and it makes sense. Oppenheimer and Barbie, those two alone should have did it.
Was Oppenheimer Warner Brothers?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Warner Brothers. Barbie definitely.
Yeah.
But and Joker and
I'm sorry, Oppenheimer was Universal. I'm sorry, Oppenheimer and Barbie came out the same week.
They came out the same day.
Yes, you're right, because the thing. Yeah. What was it was Barbie and something else that grossed a lot of money last year. Both coming from Warner.
I mean, the Mario Brothers movie, but I think that was Universal also. But either way,
that was Universal. Yeah.
But it's still to the point that Barbie grossed $500 million, and you would not have known that watching Dynamite on a Warner Brothers channel. That's the point. So, and whether it's the movies is just obviously one thing that we just have an interest in. But there are other ways to integrate the diversity of the roster into so many different ecosystems. It can't just be a Twitch stream. It can't just be a blog or a podcast. It has to be something a little bit more sustainable. You got to go to where the people are. And that's the thing that I hope that with AEW's next brand television deal, Which is why we talked about it a couple weeks ago that the CW deal was such a big deal for NXT. They get to be a big fish in a very small pond. AEW could be positioned in that way as the cheaper alternative to the NBA. Now that the NBA will probably leave Turner, what will they have left? Hockey, baseball, but AEW, not sure.
Listen, the fact that Turner, the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery is losing the NBA, is there ever a bigger, more indication that they're struggling with their finances right now?
Well,
if they don't match those deals, that's just going to be. It reminds me of when CBS lost the NFL in the 90s when Fox got the NFC package and CBS was without for those like 4 years there. It's like I can't imagine. I mean, the dip that those networks are going to take losing the NBA is it's going to be significant. It's going to be something else if it happens. There you go. Now you're back in there.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess SummerSlam is is where we're at.
Yeah.
With all this stuff here. So yes, the other big news of the day, as we move away from AEW Turning 5, SummerSlam. I guess we should first frame this as Minneapolis. Are they getting the consolation prize here?
It damn sure is.
100%.
It not only confirms that they had WrestleMania in the bag in the strongest pivot of all time, because listen, we can talk all we want how Vegas is the fight capital and Saudi Arabia can throw their hat in there as well too. But the reason why Minneapolis lost WrestleMania has nothing to do with Vegas, if you ask me. It has everything to do with Philadelphia, because once the Elements decided to roll up in Lincoln Financial, they was like, "Oh no,
that first night,
no.
It's too cold."
And I get it. I get it that Minneapolis has a dome. I get it. That does not mean that the whole other part of the cities is not cold and people have to get there. Transportation, logistics, all those things
be there the whole week.
All of that. So why even take the chance knowing that global warming is out here kicking ass and taking names?
Man, let me ask you this. Have you ever been to Minneapolis?
No.
Okay, so it shows. And the reason why is because Minneapolis has a connected heated skywalk through all of downtown. The airport is maybe a half an hour away. At Lindbergh, it's downtown is really compact. It's easily walkable. Target Center, the baseball stadium are right next to each other, which is like maybe a half mile from the football stadium, and First Avenue, where they have First Wrestling at the big music venue. It's a big thing. Now, granted, is it a thing that you want to do in March because it's going to be around 12 degrees? Well, the shit is inside. Everything else is going to be indoors, and the people that live there still live there. So we're not worried about what they did in New York, where it was 35 and rain, and they had to heat the ring. We're not worried about Philly because it decided to blow you got frostbite in Section 402. That's not a problem in Minneapolis. The reason why they was a problem because it's Minneapolis. The same reason why you said Dynasty was a problem in St. Louis is why WWE said, "Oh, yeah, Vegas." Yeah, every single time.
When they announced Vegas, my first thought was, if Rock's wrestling again, he wasn't gonna be doing it in Minneapolis. he needed a bigger venue. It needed to be Vegas or LA or something like that. Minneapolis wasn't gonna cut it. But yeah, so the consolation prize, folks, since we could really spell it out here, is it was announced today. Next year, so 2025, since this year's SummerSlam is already set for Cleveland, SummerSlam will be coming to Minneapolis, but the extra cherry on top is SummerSlam will be expanding to 2 nights, just like WrestleMania. So it's the first other 2-night event outside of WrestleMania next year in Minneapolis. So I think this begs the question, if they're doing this with SummerSlam, is this just opening the door that Royal Rumble could be next, something like that? Because, I mean, they're doing stadium shows for all these big cards now. So if SummerSlam's
baseball stadiums and stuff for the Royal Rumble.
I'm saying but this is the first one that's 2 nights. So could Royal Rumble be next, especially given they're doing 2 Rumbles now? it fit really easy to be like women's Rumble one night, men's Rumble the next night.
In the same way with this King of the Ring tournament, you could say the Queen's winner main event's night 1 and the King's winner main event's night 2.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah, but also, hold on. Let's go back to the news from just a week ago. I don't think this is going to be a repeat offender because the TKO synergy, they can't run 2 nights, but also run Power Slap, NXT,
right?
A UFC card. I mean, ain't nobody spending a week nowhere. I don't
when they start doing TKO takeover weekends, that is true. That is going to be a little bit tricky.
So, in Minneapolis, you could do that because you have the 2 arenas, one in Minneapolis, one in St. Paul. You have the football stadium where the big show is going to be. You have the soccer stadium, the baseball stadium, and the Gopher stadium, and several other venues that strategically you could do it.
No, no doubt. But I just think that analytically it doesn't make sense because you have a competitive nature. First of all, a UFC event takes over the entire night because they have the main event, the prelims, I think there's 4 different tiers or whatnot. Right. So you're not running anything else that night. I mean, you could run NXT during the day and UFC at night, but that's still
NXT at 11 in the morning. Why not?
Yeah, but that's still banks that you got to get Power Slap in there. You got to get the 2 nights.
Do we need Power Slap in there? I mean, is that a thing that people are clamoring for?
I'm not advocating for it, but
that's don't get me wrong. Project, so he's gonna fit in there one way or another.
Yeah,
As much as I love Dumpling, I mean, I don't think people are going to lose their shit because Power Slap isn't a part of the TKO winning weekend.
There's a community of folks that don't like NXT just because it's not the real WWE. So like, you could, So at the end of the day, and maybe that is what you do. Maybe you put NXT and Power Slap on the same night, and you just call it amateur night for just all the disrespect in the world. But yeah, I mean, that's 2 events there. UFC definitely takes over one whole night. You have 2 pay-per-view nights. You have to have a weigh-in, a press conference. There's a lot that they can do. But the biggest factor is no one is trying to sign up for 4 nights of events for just any regular weekend. Your WrestleMania weekend, sure. Your big UFC numbers, sure. But just not just because. So I think 2 nights really exhausting the WWE resources by doing 2 nights of these pay-per-views religiously is not a good look. They need to be limited. They need to be targeted. And that's how it should be. I don't think it should this should be breeding more of the big 4 or 5 of all of them having 2 nights. Do not need. I do not want 2 nights of Money in the Bank. I do not.
Thinking about the calendar, it's like we'll have just had 2 nights of WrestleMania in April in Vegas, and then this will be all of like 3-4 months later. So it is a pretty quick return to be another double night event, just like that. It's not like it's spread out like they're doing it with a Survivor Series.
That would be the case if we were paying for each pay-per-view. With Peacock,
I'm thinking about people going live. I'm thinking of that respect.
All live.
No. Well, that's the thing. If you're flying to Minneapolis for this, or to wherever, it could be in Omaha. But if you're flying to the event, you're there for the event. And any other secondary events, you're committed for the weekend. I mean, yes, it is theoretically possible to fly in the morning of, fly out after the show, but more than likely, you're there for the weekend. Now, the question, of course, is for cities that want to be considered for these big events. And granted, only WrestleMania and SummerSlam should be 2-night events. There was the 2 biggest events in WWE history, and they should be treated as such. And we've said on this podcast many times over the course of the past few years, SummerSlam should be an outdoor football stadium, baseball stadium event. It deserves it. Anywhere in North America, playing in Canada, Winnipeg has a stadium. Saskatoon has a stadium. Just make sure the CFL is out of the way. But it should be. It is a summer thing, and it should feel like it. With that said, though, I don't have a problem with that going to 2 nights. I don't think it's going to extend to the Royal Rumble because what more do you need? You're going for the Rumble, not for 8 other matches that don't matter. And half the damn card is in the Rumble. So, so I don't think that's logistically feasible. Same thing with Money in the Bank. You have 12 people of your biggest stars in one match between the men and the women's. So you don't need to do that either. And then, of course, these things also should include NXT. Survivor Series, should include NXT. SummerSlam could have an NXT contingency or whatever. So that is the thing. I just think that it's okay for 2 nights. Of course, the biggest thing is it is a summer. Do you run the risk of running the stadium without a dome? Because it's not that the heat will be a problem, but the rain will. And if you're going to Memphis or Charlotte in August, good luck. You know,
I definitely like the idea of a dome. Give me that AC in the summer.
Exactly. So yeah, they can do it in Phoenix. There's a dome there. There's 2 domes there. So I like it. SummerSlam should be for the summer, and it should be a bigger deal.
All right. Oh, we got about 5 minutes left here. Any other thoughts on this or anything else?
Yes, so real quick, there is a thing that I wanted to bring up. Mark Henry, he said on a podcast, and I don't have the name of the podcast. No, actually, it was a virtual signing for WrestleFest. And he said that in a modern day Nation of Domination, he would pick Hobbs, Omos, Carmelo Hayes, Bobby Lashley, and Velveteen Dream.
Oh, there's a name we ain't heard.
That is a spicy pick right there. Now he goes on to say that he thinks that Patrick Clark deserves a second chance. The short question is, do you think he's right?
Ooh.
Now, granted, that's a lot to unpack there in the time that we have.
Yeah.
I do think that that's a question that can't be just as simple as yes or no, but it is a thing as to, we can unpack this fully at a later date, but, there's been some time now. There's been some separation between him and wrestling. He's not owed anything, Pat, and he's nobody has to book him. Nobody has to hire him, but
he getting booked though.
Here and there.
It's better than zero.
There's always someone that's going to book somebody, regardless of what they do. I mean, we know that in wrestling. That's how it is.
Right. So that was one thing, and the second thing is Ric Flair literally said that of course the word came out that he had a heart attack during his last match, which was either the greatest sell job of all time or he was really having a heart attack and it turned out he's not that good of an actor. But he does say that hey, to Dutch Mantel, who said on Twitter, like, if it's a free country, if you want to die in the ring, then so be it. And Rick was like, yeah, fucking A. Maybe I do.
I got next.
Which is the most Ric Flair thing to say. He shouts out his cardiologist who diagnosed the heart attack. But he says, I've been in the ring since I was 15 and I'm 75 now, still in the limelight, still in the main event. Now, the question is, do you want to see Ric Flair's final match?
I think we
got close enough on that last one.
Damn sure. Now I don't need any more of that.
I mean, he would be the greatest deathmatch wrestler of all time.
Jeez. Look at you with your puns.
Thank you.
Once
a year. Once a year, damn it. It's global warming.
I was just going to say to the SummerSlam thing in 2 nights. Listen, what a time to be alive, man. There's so much wrestling out there wherever you go. And for the folks that are making the trips and don't get a lot of vacations in their life, it's good that you get to go somewhere and your whole weekend has options. Jamal, on the other hand, saying when you're out there, you just go to the events. I can also defer back to times where we also used to go on trips and the whole weekend of events. And I said, Jamal, are we doing this? Nope, I'm out.
Gotta go.
Get there Thursday, out Saturday morning. So, however you want to do it, the options are available, which is the good thing. You have options. So if you want to have the whole TKO synergy, then so be it. It's all there. Go check out a Power Slap. Go check out a UFC.
You and Power Slap, man. What do they got on you? They sponsoring this for real? I've not heard Power Slap come up outside of Poland, bro, in the last 2 years.
Bro. So when Dana White was on the press conference, oh my God, how did we not talk about press conferences? Or was it just a Twitter conversation about how press conferences are being handled? There's a lot of shit about press conferences.
That's been done to death. We don't need to touch that mess.
Who asking the tough questions? Why people aren't asking questions? Who's scared? Da. people just on the outside looking in, pissed off because they ain't getting invites and throwing shade at other. It's a mess. But going back to Dana White did get up on there after a UFC press conference after an event and talked about how the WWE would be shifting theirs to Sundays so that the UFC could have Fridays and Saturdays for Power Slap and the UFC, which WWE would traditionally go back to Sundays. I think it's all BS because you don't know until you get to that weekend on how things are going to be done. And at the end of the
Dana's
day,
not taking into account SmackDown being on Fridays.
Or
if it stays on Fridays, you know,
or he's not the boss. He's not the one calling the shot.
I was like, I think Nick Khan's going to have something to say about this, and he's also not taking into account that like over half of these shows now are in the afternoon because they're overseas. So
yeah.
It's a whole ball of wax.
I would like to see a well, not that I don't give a shit about the UFC, but if they were to combine, goddamn Power Slap. But if they were to combine the TKO winning weekend as a bundle to buy on YouTube, where you just get 12 hours of content, I think the math kind of works out for that.
Not unless Disney gives up the exclusive rights to UFC pay-per-views on ESPN Plus, which that's not happening. So
do they get all of them, or is it just like the major ones?
ESPN Plus is the exclusive distributor of UFC.
But do these new packages that are coming out, does that change the game? That's the first thing I thought about. Could I finally get around the paywall, behind the paywall, to just to pay one price to watch a pay-per-view and not have to do so many loopholes? I wonder if that changes things. That will definitely be a discussion in the future. But what a crazy time. It's so crazy when you think about just trying to watch the entertainment out there, man.
It's cable plus. It's just all streaming now. It's all coming. It's coming full circle.
Yeah, I mean, who knows that 2024 will be the year of on demand.
Yeah,
there you go.
I don't know. Man. I think we need to rebrand ourselves to the Big Gold Belt Media Plus because everybody else is doing it.
You gotta have a plus in there. Big Gold Belt Plus. There you go.
Hey, that South Park episode is hilarious. If you've ever seen it, if you know it, you know.
All right. Well, folks, it's been another week. Every Thursday night, 8 p.m., we are here breaking down the week in wrestling. It's always good if you can join us. We're streaming on all platforms, X, YouTube, Twitch, you name it. And, of course, at BigGoldBelt. Where is it? BigGoldBelt.com/live. It's also where the stream is on the web. So lots of options to tune in to the live stream Thursday nights, 8 p.m. In the meantime, on social media, it's at Big Gold Belt across the board. So you can check in during the week, see what's going on. Big Gold Belt Media, entertainment, pop culture, fandoms, and more. And, of course, BigGoldBelt.com on the World Wide Web. So tons of ways to stay in touch and see what's going on. Folks, double shows this weekend, so buckle in. We'll be back next week to talk about it and break them down and whatever else happens in wrestling over the next week. So next Thursday night, 8 p.m., we will be here, and we hope you are too. Until then, stay tight, watch some wrestling, and we will
have a good holiday.
Yeah, have a good. It's a long weekend, so there you go. Plenty of things to do this weekend. So see y'all next week, folks. Talk to you then.